You asked for it!
May knowledge guide you. Let me weave you a verse.
You're dead meat!
Hi Yaksha, Togashi here. Welcome to another guide. In this video, we're gonna go through DEYAH game style, abilities, weapon, artifacts, both set and stats, constellation, and of course, team building. In this guide, I will try to be a bit more chill since the last guide went extremely well in my perspective. With all that being said, let the guide begin. DEYAH is our newest character in the game. After 3.5, she would then be available through standard banner along with other units. She is a 5-star Claymore Pyro unit, capable of being both main DPS and somewhat DPS in a team. Her elemental skill, Molten Inferno. When activate, do AoE pyro damage and create a fiery sanctum. When an opponent within a fiery sanctum field take damage, the field will do AoE pyro damage to them based on their attack and max HP. Very useful offensive mechanic, but this effect can only be triggered once every 2.5 seconds. Active character within this field will have their resistance to interruption greatly increase, and when that character take damage, a portion of that damage will be reduced and transferred to DEYAH. She will slowly take this damage over the duration of 10 seconds. DEYAH cannot die by this way. This process is called Redmane Blood. When there are already a fiery sanctum on the ground and you activate her elemental skill again, she will then perform a leaping attack, dealing AoE pyro damage, and then reposition the previous fiery sanctum. The important part here is the repositioned field will inherit the previous field duration. Hence, you cannot extend the field time.
You asked for it!
When activate the elemental burst, she will then automatically and continuously punch, dealing pyro damage based on her attack and max HP. When its duration ends, she will do a leaping attack, once again dealing AoE pyro damage. This also scale based on her attack and max HP. If DEYAH activate her elemental burst in a fiery sanctum created by her elemental skill, he then will retrieve it and then recreate another field once her burst duration is over. This field will also inherit the remaining duration of the previous field. During burst, DEYAH will be unable to cast anything but her new elemental skill called Roaring Barrage. Unleashing this ability within 0.4 seconds after each punch by her elemental burst will increase the speed at which next punch will be thrown. There are two worth mentioning passive skills which can be unlocked by level of DEYAH. Within 6 seconds after DEYAH retrieves the fiery sanctum, she will take 60% less damage when receiving damage from the Redmane Blood. Additionally, within 9 seconds after DEYAH activate her elemental skill, without any field on the ground, she will grant party member even greater interruption resistant buff. Lastly, when her HP is less than 40%, DEYAH will recover 20% of her max HP immediately and 6% over 10 seconds. That was a lot, but in short, her E create a field. Standing in that field will increase your interruption resistance. When opponent take damage within a field, a pyro AoE explosion will pop on them. By standing in this field, the damage you take will be reduced and transferred to DEYAH. You can reactivate this ability to deal another instant of AoE pyro damage and reposition the field, but the duration will not be reset. Her elemental burst let you punch people automatically and continuously. Replacing your elemental skill with another ability that's when activated right after a punch will then increase the speed of the next punch. active Dehya burst while on a field will erase the field, but Dehya will recreate another one at the end of her burst. This field duration will also not be reset, but inherit the previous one. With her abilities being fully explained, it's now easier to understand why she can be played at 2 different playstyles on many different teams. You can fully focus on her skill and burst and start smashing people with your fist, or be an off-field sub DPS and use your E as element application device, or buff in some scenario for your teammates. The recommendation for Dehya abilities are burst, skill, attacks for main DPS, and skill for sub DPS. Yep, just skill. Before we start to actually building her, knows that Dehya desperately need attack buffs from other sources. Keep that in mind and, well, let's move on. Greetings, traveler. I hope you find my content enjoyable, and if that's the case, don't forget to subscribe to support me and Togashi. Back to the video. Whee! Moving to the flame main Westman choices. Got a 5-star, 4-star, and 3-star. Friendly reminder, that's all the graphs I'm using in this guide will be available on my Dehya guide Pictures edition. So if you want it, go to my other social media and, well, get it. Anyway, with all that being shown, the recommendation are her future weapon, Beacon of the Reed Sea. This weapon fit Dehya perfectly from the look to the hook. Get it? The hook? Because well, she punched? No, that hook. Right hook? No? No one? Okay. Anyway, the weapon gives her crit rate and attack as main stats, which is already amazing. But her weapon also gives her attack buff after its user hit an opponent with elemental skill. But that's not all. There are more attack buffs. After the character takes damage, their attack will be increased by 8 seconds. This effect can be triggered when its user is not on the field. And when not protected by a shield, the character max HP will be increased as well. Reminder that Dehya abilities scale with attack and max HP. Yup, literally perfect for Dehya. From the look to the hook. No? Still no? Come on! Beside Beacon of the Reed Sea, I can only recommend to go with Redhorn Stone Thresher in the 5-star sections. To be clear, the passive on this weapon is nearly useless for Dehya. The only valuable stat are the attack and crit is provide. A good stat stick. But Yaksha, it increased normal and charge attacks. Well, sad to tell ya, Dehya punches during burst do not count as normal attacks. Remember the openings? Yep, me too. Anyway, to the 4-star we go. I recommend Akuomaru, Blackcliff, Serpent, Favonius, and Sea Lord. This weapon gives you attack and elemental burst damage bonus. Sound perfect for a 4-star, and yes, it is pretty much perfect for a 4-star. In my opinion, this is the best 4-star weapon for Dehya. After this, we had Blackcliff and Serpent Spine. Generally, these are static, especially Serpent Spine. This weapon passive is pretty bad for Dehya since to keep the damage buff it grants, the character must not take damage. Let that sink in. And for Blackcliff, this weapon actually gives you attack buff, but only after you defeat an opponent, so kinda situational. But since it's a free-to-play friendly options, and it grants both crit and attack, this weapon is highly recommended if you don't want to invest too much on Dehya. Talk about free-to-play friendly, Luxurious Sea Lord and the newest 4-star claimer from the event, Male Flower, are decent options. I recommend Sea Lord over Male Flower though. And if after the artifact stats section we're about to go through, and you realize, hey, I need Eeyore, Favonius Greatsword is the one to go. Oh, a worthy mention option is the Bell. For artifacts, let's talk about which sets go with what playstyle first, and ta-da! Main DPS playstyle will focus more on getting and dealing damage with her elemental burst. Therefore, sets that provide ER and damage buff on bursts like Emblem are very valuable, since it can ultimately give you much better time at farming for the right piece and balance out your stats. Therefore, my recommendation is 4-piece emblem. You can also go for 4-piece lava walker if you are running a mono pyro team. Contradict to main DPS, sub DPS Dehya will take much less field time like any others. Most of her value will come from the damage reduction and AoE pyro damage that can be triggered while she's not on the field. Therefore, sets like Tenacity of the Millionth, View the Dream, and Flower of the Paradise Lost are my recommendations. Tenacity set will grant your party member attack buff when Dehya use her elemental skill. This set fit best in a melt team and non-danger related reactions, while View the Dream and Flower of Paradise Lost are better for danger related reaction teams. Just like the set, her stat will also be varied based on her playstyle. Okay, don't blink. Sure, I know, but it's alright. Most of them are only 1 or 2 things different from each other, so let's go through them. For main DPS, once again, we focus on elemental burst damage and to get it up when you need it to be up. With that in mind, I recommend you to go for attack sense, pyro goblet, and crit circle, looking for ER, crit, attack, and HP in substat. And if you need ER, then instead of attack, you can use ER sand instead. And if you need EM, well, get EM sands. Now have to know what you need. This will be decided based on who's in your Dehya part. Generally, you go attack or ER for overloaded and monopyro, EM or ER for bait. In overloaded and monopyro, you will want something somewhere around 140 to 160% ER for Dehya. For overloaded, Raiden Shogun really helped out. And if you don't have battery units like in monopyro or overloaded with Raiden, you will need over 200% ER. For sub DPS, your values are in your elemental skill and the pyro it provided. Since that's the case, it's best for sub DPS Dehya to play in a vape and melt team. In this team, you will want EM Sands, Pyro Goblet, and Crit Circlet. For substat, the most important tools are EM and crits. This needs of EM will be greatly increased if you play Dehya in a danger-related reaction team, such as Burgeon and Burning. In this team, you will want all 3 of your Sands, Goblet, and Circlet to have EM as your main stats. And, well, since you only there for your elemental skill, ER is not needed. What is a gacha game without increasing the value by getting multiple copies of the product? Am I right? For her Constellation, just know that you scale dramatically better with Constellation. Since the guide been very lengthy, I will save your poor soul and tell you guys what are the recommendations. Is C1, C4, and 6. You are welcome. Okay, elemental reaction. This is gonna be awkward, but Dehya isn't very flexible. In fact, she is very limited in the matter of who to pair her with. So I cannot really recommend based on the reactions. Yes, I know I've been using reaction in the previous portion, but that was just to make sure the portion doesn't get any longer. Okay, for the main TPS, you need BEZT. If you don't, then you need a lot of ER from your artifacts or teammates. With Dehya and BEZT, you can pair them with Mona and animal units that use the VV artifact sets like Kazuha. This will be your vape team. BEZT will provide you some energy and attack buff with his burst. Mona also does the same with her burst. Kazuha, who used VV set, will provide you with extra damage as well. You can also replace Mona with Raiden Shogun and turn your team into overloaded reaction team. The reaction is nice and all, but what makes the team damage comparable with the other is the fact that Raiden gives your team members damage buff on their burst. Yup, value. Another main DPS Dehya team that I highly recommend is to pair the duo Dehya and BEZT with Zhangling and VV set user. With this mono pyro team, you will constantly generate energy for Dehya with Bennett and Zhangling. Plus, Zhangling do good damage with her bursts, which can bring the total team DPS up. Oh, and don't forget about the Pyro Resonance. It increased your team attacks. For sub DPS, Dehya best team is Melt with Ganyu. You will have Ganyu as main DPS, Dehya as sub DPS. Pair them with a Zhangling for extra pyro application, and the last unit can be another pyro unit or Nahida. Nahida will turn pyro aura on opponents into burning reactions, which deal pyro damage over time. Ultimately, this chain will make sure every shot that Ganyu shoot will trigger Melt. And since Dehya provide interruption resistance, this helped Ganyu to finish her aiming animation without getting knocked around. Dehya can also be paired with double Hydro Hu Tao team, so we had Hu Tao, Dehya pairing with Yelan and Xingqiu, or both. Lastly, we had Virgin Dehya. This team will have Nahida as your Dendro application, then Dehya and Bennett for Pyro and attack buff. Pairing with Xingqiu or Yelan for Hydro application, or else it's just a burning team. Whew, that was a lot. But this is why I had closed caption and subtitle available. Just go back and look at the graph, or listen to what part you don't quite understand yet, or just simply because my accent was horrible to listen to. With all that being done, I wish you guys to have a good day. Until next time, travelers.